And we're back. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Master This. Here with Dr. Avivi. We're back after a brief summer break, focusing on working from home. And now we're going to tackle a new topic. We're going to talk about procrastination. So, Adi, you want to kick us off?
We're going to talk about perfectionism, but it's okay to make mistakes.
We're going to talk about perfectionism. That was planned.
Well, we were talking about procrastination so much that it's just on our minds. We're working on it and running trainings about procrastination. So I get why you're thinking like that.
So, perfectionism. We learned things about that. First thing that I think is worth talking about perfectionism. Well, for those who don't know, perfectionism is, right? It's essentially thinking that you can do a perfect job on something, but to the point of having massive anxiety and oftentimes not accomplish. Many people in the workplace, in a relationship, in their home environment struggle with perfection because they are attached too much to this fantasy, right, of what their life could be or what they want to do. But that fantasy contrast with reality creates so much anxiety that it often cripples them, prevents them from doing. So during this, 10, 15 minutes, we're going to dive into a little bit more. Is future weeks we're going to talk about over it, what the deep falls might be, and how to just create systems so you don't experience it again.
Yeah. And we're gonna today do kind of like a quick introduction, maybe kind of give you a little bit of what are the signs? What should I look for when I'm thinking, is this something that is problematic for me? Because perfectionism in and of itself doesn't need to be a problem. If what there are different kind of names and types of it, you might call it constructive perfectionism, striving perfectionism. Those are the kind of like striving for the best, which there's no problem with that. If you're striving to do better, it's a little bit like the musician who is striving to have the best outcome, the most beautiful presentation of their musical performance, which is fine. It's great. The problem is when the perfectionism become destructive and evaluative. When what happens is you move to an all or nothing thinking. It's either perfect or it's not worth it. And when you have very critical evaluative process of yourself, others, and maybe society or the world around you, which creates a lot of problems. It actually reduces the chances of you enjoying and learning and from the process and reaching your goals. And actually, to your kind of like thinking of procrastination is a sign. It's kind of like a warning sign that maybe there is perfectionism that is corrosive and toxic in your psyche system. People who are motivated by toxic perfectionism often are pushed by fear. It's not about doing a good job. It's not about reaching a goal. It's more about avoiding failure. And so they're very, very goal oriented. And what I mean by that, it's okay to want to reach a goal. That's wonderful. We all have goals. What it means is not allowing the road to the goal to be that road. Mistakes are not tolerated. Confusion is not tolerated. Any painful emotions that might be there on the way to the road are not tolerated. It's just the goal, and that price is supposed to be a particular thing. And that doesn't really allow you to be a human being who's striving for the best. I wonder if things come up as I say that.
Yeah, I mean, that really makes sense. I love that you put it that way. I work with my clients, I find that perfectionism is actually the most common in younger new professionals, particularly people that don't have a lot of experience. Because, we're often sold these fairy tales, or maybe we have this fantasy of ourselves, especially if we're talented or gifted and talented individual, right? That we don't have to really work for stuff. We have this idea of what life should look like. We have this idea of how easy things should be. And one thing that I've learned through my, business ownership experiences has been nothing is as simple as, right? Something as, simple as sending an email, right? Or like setting up a Zoom call can often be incredibly complex, especially when you're working with teams or you're working with someone who has technology before. Not even to speak of like running an event, right? It's like, oh, we're going to get people together and have a book club. That takes easily 10 to 15 hours of work, not to mention dealing with crises, people ghosting, people flaking, people picking the wrong book, whatever it is, right? But
Mm-hmm.
one doesn't really get the experience of how bumpy the road is until they've had a lot of experience, right? Until they've done a lot of things, know how involved things are. The problem with perfectionism is it actually prevents you from having those experiences. Because when one
Exactly.
experiences those bumps, they're like, no, this is not right. Impulse there is to either, two things typically. Typically is like throw in the towel, right? Give up and walk away. Or two, which is something that the mind does, is do the same thing but harder, right? So just push harder instead of being tactical and changing way of doing something.
I love the examples you gave because when I teach DBT to my patients, when I run DBT groups, and we talk a lot about invalidating environments and how they create problems for people. And one of the problems is this message that we get from society that problems are easy to solve, that it's no big deal, just like solve it. And I often give a similar, you're talking about writing an email. I often give laundry as an example. It's supposed to be simple, just go do the laundry. And it's actually, there's so much emotional hurdles, actually, plural, on the way to doing simple tasks. And if we expect ourselves to only be able to do that, or we believe that we can only do that when it's easy, when it comes easily and it just flows out of us perfectly, what happens is we become really uh, um, frozen, and it reduces our self-esteem. It creates a problem for us because we sit there waiting for the moment in which it will just happen without us having to overcome hurdles. And that's not how the world works. It's not how the human mind works. And another thing that would happen, aside from us really not investing, not accumulating all this experience you talked about in how to solve problems, how to manage when things don't go our way, other things could happen. We might commit to something that is above our skill set because things are supposed to be easy for us and really freak out and have very, very high levels of anxiety. We might not learn when and how to ask for help and when to collaborate. We will rely on ourselves in a way that's very unhealthy. It's great to be self reliant. However, we do need to collaborate in most tasks in life, and most people don't work in isolation. And the other thing that will happen to us is we might become very defensive because it is painful to acknowledge that we are not perfect. If perfectionism is corrosive, if it is toxic, we might then change our interactions with other people. Any criticism, any feedback might feel like a very painful injury. And the way we respond to others will reduce the likelihood that we will be successful. So I think in the next couple of weeks, as we talk about it, we will touch on these subjects. We will touch on the different ways in which perfectionism comes to manifest itself in our relationship with ourselves, others, and our work environment. We're going to talk about how to recognize it and where it comes from, because this isn't coming from nowhere. There is the social aspect that you had talked about. Young people are given really, really toxic messages today. And we typically also get it from our families and from the work environment. There are a lot of working environment that prey on perfectionism and are looking for people with low self-esteem and the toxic perfectionism trait in order to get more. And we're going to think together how to create a work environment that actually is working for employees and for employers to make the most out of it, rather than just, it's kind of like perfectionism is a short run and not a long-term plan to make the most out of someone as an employee. And we're going to talk about how to do things differently, how to tackle these.
So wrapping up here, that sounds like a great roadmap. Comment below if you experience perfection. To look for that Adi was is if you procrastinate, gotta write this. If you find yourself, having unrealistic fantasies, you find yourself taking things actually way below your skill set so that you can feel like you're being. If you find yourself isolated, not asking, these might be some of the signs this series will apply. So that's all we got for y'all. We'll be on and off the next couple of weeks as this wrapping up, getting more. Love to hear from you. Please comment, like, share. See y'all soon.
All right. Bye,
Care.
everyone.
Bye.